Hello. Welcome to the Point 99 podcast, episode 4 of season 4. We're fast approaching the halfway point of this season already, and it feels like just yesterday I was speaking to Carl ahead of episode 1. Hopefully it isn't a sign of the year passing in the blink of an eye. It is a somber start to the episode today as I pay respect to Kelvin Kiptum, who many of you will have heard sadly passed away at the weekend. It was undoubtedly going to be a ferocious battle for the world record this year between several remarkable athletes, including Kelvin. It's sad to hear of Kelvin's passing, the current men's marathon record holder of 2 hours and 35 seconds and the course record holder at the London Marathon. He had his life cut short at such a young age and definitely had an exceptional career ahead of him. It's a stark reminder that life is fragile, so try to live it to its fullest in the time that you have. Embrace the challenges, the goals you set your sights upon, and look after yourself. To quote Ian Runs and Cycles, who summed it all up perfectly, tomorrow is never given. Do the things today. My thoughts are with those affected by this tragic loss. For those unfamiliar with the show, though, the Point 99 podcast is a running podcast for all runners, but particularly the everyday runners out there. If you're new to running or to the podcast, we hope to have guests, topics and discussions that will help you along whatever path your journey is taking. For any seasoned runners and listeners, maybe we'll have some stories that will have you empathizing with our experiences and predicaments. No matter if it's lessons we've learned during our own journeys, embarrassing stories or heartstring pulling moments. We hope you'll stick with us while we try share some good vibes, motivation and positivity. And hopefully we can have a laugh along the way. From the sad to the happy and the overwhelmingly positive response received to the last episode. The community came out in force to tune in for my chat with Nikki Sheridan, Nick Knack Mara Runs. After David took the top spot on day 1 listens and downloads for a guest just the week prior, Nikki stole that mantle and was last seen legging it down towards the John Muir Way with it. I'm so glad that the response has been as great as it has for Nikki. I've said it before and I'll say it again. She's one of the stars of the community and an all-round diamond lass. Even before we hit record, she was super excited to hear that I have my next visit to her neck of the woods booked into the diary. And she lined herself up to have a meet-up and social run if we could manage it. I'll likely put something up on my socials and in the cult nearer to the time, but I'm not looking for any spotlight attention. It's just not me. I'd rather fly under the radar with the visit, but since the cat's out of the bag to Nikki, I'll just have to roll with it. Unfortunately, or in my case, fortunately, it is a midweek visit, so if nobody's available, it's no great loss to their day. Keep your comments and thoughts on the episode coming in though, and remember to tag the podcast in any stories so I can share the love myself and my appreciation back to you all. But more importantly, let Nikki have as much love as you can muster. On to the rest of the community, and there was some action going down at the De Villa Forest Trail Race. Resident community banter lord Jace Woods, the Edinburgh runner, was getting down and dirty at the sodden 15-kilometre event. It might not have been the right shoe selection for him, but it was still a great time that he bagged. New face to the 99 pod, Jim Boyle was also in attendance, looking like he was gliding over the mud, but as a fellow Dons fan, I can only assume that the righteous walk above the muck. Rachel McPherson and James Gow, better known as Jimmy Bunter, were also down for a dirty weekend in the woods as well at the event. By all accounts, everyone had a blast, even with the messy looking course conditions. But mentioning Jimmy, he was rapid with his submission to this week's question. If you could run only one of the world majors, which would it be? Even if you've run any of them before, pretend that you haven't and expect never to do any of the others ever. Now, I should have known that there would have been someone, especially a traily ultra type, who would have found a loophole in the question, and Jimmy was the man to do so. So James slid into the DMs and firstly praised the pod for making work a little bit more bearable. His choice event, though, was the UTMB Mont Blanc, a World Series major ultra marathon. His reasoning was that you're running on the same trail that has seen giants of the sport, and for him that's awesome. For that period, you are with them on the same journey. It's also the pinnacle of the ultra calendar, putting your body through hell and joining the list of people who can say, I've done it. If your idea of fun is like Jimmy's and you like putting your body through hell, then I expect there's a list for you all somewhere out there, but this also might be an aspiration for you all as well. Back to the cool gang, the road running crew. I'm joking. First up, we have James McQuillan, whose choice is New York as it is so iconic. Rapid Edinburgh runner A.B. McCracken's response hurts him to answer, as he's been refused twice in the ballot and once for good for age. Now, I cut off there, but I was pretty sure I knew what was coming next, and his follow-up DM was spot on to what I was thinking. It would be London for AB, as he feels that's the number one race in the world just now, and it would be amazing to say that he has done it. That is actually also the same place that our big Bob Burrell, the Kilsyth runner, would choose. It has to be London. Fingers crossed he can return one day. And since Bob and AB are going to have to get a running date set up fairly soon, that kind of works out quite well there. Episode 2's guest, David Wright's choice is exactly the same as what I would choose myself, Tokyo. His reasoning is that it is totally different in its whole experience than any of the others, and it would be a great opportunity to travel. Our man in Saudi, Doug, would choose Chicago. I can only assume, because he didn't give a reason, that it's to be as close as possible to the pre and post carb loading opportunities that are the Chicago deep dish pizza. It's also a catch up here for Doug's submission to last week's question, as I kind of recorded a little bit too quick to catch it, but he would choose Liz McColgan for that one. DC Born to Run Ant would choose Boston. Now, it's relatively close in his neck of the woods. I know where he kind of resides, and in American terms, it is just a stone's throw from him. He says, as a slower runner, the ultimate goal is to qualify for Boston. Now, finally, we have the flyer from Florence. Stuart runs a lot. That he does. NYC, the Big Apple. It's his second favourite city, so it'd have to be there. Plus the fact you run through the 5 boroughs. I did check with Stuart to see what his number one city was, and of course it is the magical Florence, after the stunning performance that he blasted out on its picturesque streets. What question do I have for episode 5 then? It's getting harder for me to think of anything myself, so if you do have anything you'd like to set, help us out and drop it over in a DM. I do have one for this week, and it's inspired by the nutter Russell Cook, who is running the length of Africa. So I'm asking you, if you had the opportunity to run the length of any country, I'm saying country, not continent here, where would you choose? Money, gear, food, everything would be covered. You just choose the destination and you can take as long as you want. As usual, the submissions will be up on Monday with next week's guest announcement, but you can always drop it in while it's fresh in your head in the DMs if you want to. Talking guests, we'll get on to this week's in just a moment. First though, what has been happening in my own running world? It's much the same as usual, really, but back into the swing of things now that the weather seems to have calmed down a little bit. Fingers crossed that it lasts though. I did strap on the alphas and took off for a half marathon effort at the weekend and cruised to my third fastest 15k, 20k, 10 mile and half marathon efforts. I aimed for a gentle climb in the first quarter of the run, taking it nice and steady, and then on the way back lifted the feet, giving it a little bit more puff. I definitely wasn't out of breath or blowing out my backside when I finished, so it's looking good for my March effort. Once again, if it doesn't fall into place during Inverness, there will always be other days. I'm not going to lose any sleep over it or worry about it. It's a new year, new mindset for me. But let's get on to this week's guest and find out about their running. Now, I'm just going to let the introduction I read to the man himself during our chat do the talking. But let me know what you think once you've heard it, and I'll catch you on the other side of this interview. From an ultra new star in episode 3 to someone who you could easily mistake for having more years of running ultras under his belt than he actually has. This man has already tackled several grueling ultramarathon events in a short space of time and will undoubtedly have more bagged before the year is done. Ultras aside, I've had the pleasure of meeting him in the flesh, and I have to say, he's one of life's good eggs. Not only is he a font of nutritional knowledge, being a man of a million meals in one day, but regularly has a smile to brighten your mood and a kind word when you're needing to be raised up. But whether he's winging it down the wall, adventuring in Arran, or gunning it along the Great Glen, he's getting it done and then some. So join me in welcoming the man who swapped rucking for running as we scratch the surface on how it all began and how the future's shaping up for Gary_runs_Gary Dempsey.
Wow, that was very kind.
I'm never sure how they're going to go down those intros. I kind of rack my brain to try and get as nice as possible.
I like that you got a bit in about how much food I eat as well.
I mean, we'll come to that, but you do like your food. You were setting a good pace on the meals at the 24.
Yeah, that was the main goal, to see how much I could eat for 24 hours.
How are you getting on, my friend?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Just working away, running. That's about it.
Ugh, what better life is there?
No, I know.
So it's early on in the week this week, so we're bang on ready for this episode. So I don't know whether you've been out for one today or not, but have you been running?
I have, yeah. It was just an easy 5K today. I've been having a little issue with my hamstring, a bit tight, so just pulling back a bit at the moment just to see how it goes on this week.
Listen off a wee bit.
Yeah, no, it felt okay today. It was just, like I said, an easy 5K. So, but yeah, I actually felt really good today. So hopefully, by the end of this easy week, I'll be ready to start building next week again.
So there's not much mileage on the plan, no?
No, not much this week. A couple of workouts, yoga, and yeah, just a bit of work on the hamstring, and a couple of runs in there. I think I've got a 2-hour run on Saturday. But yeah, that will just be nice and easy. So
grand.
Yeah.
Got to look forward to those easy weeks when they come, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I know that when I've gotten hard, we have had some hard weeks. I'm lucky enough to have a great coach now. And yeah, she puts in some hard stuff, but I absolutely love the hard stuff as well. So but yeah, we need the easy weeks as well to help the body build on the hard weeks. So yeah, I'll take it while it's here.
So I kind of alluded to it there, but kind of in the intro. You've not been running for all that long. So before I get to like finding out a little bit more about that, have you had the coach for long then, or is it a new kind of development in your running?
Yeah, so it was just around about the start of October. So it was um, the week of Glasgow to Edinburgh. I spoke to her the weekend before, I think it was. Um, so it's Karen Nichols, so it's her and Debbie Martin Kinsani that have the Wild Heart Runners, and um, yeah, so it started the week after then. So it's not been too long, but yeah, the difference I can feel already. And she's an amazing person. She's probably the most positive person I've ever met in my life. And it's great to have her there to help me build each week at the moment, because up until that point I was just doing things on my own. So to have that structure there, I don't need someone to help me get out the door because I'm fortunate enough to have that in myself. But I just need someone to help me with that structure there, and that's exactly what she does for me.
Makes things easier, doesn't it, when you have someone telling you exactly how far they would like you to go, and
Yeah,
you don't have to think about that part yourself.
totally. Yeah, and I know that sometimes I can do a bit too much. Sometimes, it's not all about, hitting the highest mileage or the hardest run. Sometimes it's about just doing the quality and pulling back in the mileage. And she's made sure that I've done that as well. And you can see my stats building each week. So it's all definitely working anyway.
Oh, good stuff. Good stuff. I've been scrolling through your Instagram though, as I do for most guests. Some guests I know a lot better than others, and we have met and we have had a little bit of at least a few days together, but we're still kind of relatively strangers as well.
Yep.
But you're still kind of you don't have that much on Instagram. I kind of touched on that in our pre-chat, but at the same time, what you do have are some really kind of phenomenal events in such a short space of time. And it is all predominantly ultra. So, first off, can you kind of give some background as to how you got started with running? More so, probably the ultra running, because it's all part and parcel. But also a little bit of background about what your base foundation of fitness came from, were you sporty as a child growing up, and kind of just along that sort of lines.
Yeah. Yeah. So my main sport my whole life really has been rugby. I started playing when I was 8. I was a little bit wild at that point, and one of my friends played rugby, and I went along to that. And yeah, I loved it. It just became my life. Played, yeah, from then right up until COVID came about. Um, During that time, I think it was 2014, I decided to run Edinburgh Half, and that was to raise money for Parkinson's. My dad has Parkinson's, so I wanted to do something for the charity. I went along and done that without any training really. Um, I just thought, I've got a decent fitness. Let's go for this. Um, I done okay. I done it in 1:47, I think. But I was absolutely broken. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought, I didn't raise much either. So I went and done it the next year. Again, didn't really train for it. But I'd done a couple of runs, I think 3-4 miles, and I'd done it in 1:36, and I was pretty happy with that. And I wasn't quite as broken, but I couldn't walk for a few days. Raised a little bit more money, but I still wasn't happy with what I was raising. So I thought I'd seen this thing called the Wall. So I thought I'm going to give that a go. So that's the 70-mile ultra. So that was in 2016. So I'd done that again. I didn't really train much for that. I'd looked back a couple of years ago at what I'd done, and I think I had something like I had quite a few runs, maybe 5 or 6 runs around the 5 mile mark, 2 or 3 around the 8 mile, and I think only 1 or 2 around 10, 11 miles. Um, so for for going for what I had to that was, yeah, it definitely wasn't much training. But then that was me. I was still playing rugby, and these were just things to raise money for Parkinson's, and I had raised a lot more that time doing the Wall. So that was kind of the end of it. I thought that would be me done with running. As I say, I never picked up that bug to run. I never
Yeah.
kept it going. It was always just rugby, and this was just something else for charity. But then lockdown came about, and at this point, I was in my final year at uni as well. So I always thought that once I finished uni, I would probably pull back, not quite play at the same level and train as much. But then that cut short that year, that last season. Then I decided to, maybe take up. Well, I was doing a bit of, home workouts like a lot of us were doing. A lot of burpees, squat jumps, and I was lucky enough to have a lot of weights in the house.
Mm.
And at the point, I was actually between going to start doing CrossFit or getting to running. And it was just another chat with my dad one day. I'd said about the wall. And I thought, I wonder what I could do if I actually trained for it. And at this point, it was the August, what would have been 2020. So I did. I remember it was a really hot day. I went out and ran 2 miles, probably as hard as I could, and I was dead. Um, it took so much out of me, but I'd signed up for the wall again, and I trained well. I had a bit of an issue the couple of weeks before, but I took quite a lot of my time there, and I just massively picked up this bug for running ultras, and suppose the rest
That's
is history kind of thing.
that's insane. I knew you'd done the wall. I thought you'd only done it once. That's crazy.
No, well, I've done it 3 times now. So
Wow.
I done it the year after that again. But each time I done it, I always had, obviously the first time I didn't really train for it. The second time I did do training, but I had, I think that was I can't remember, I had something 3 weeks before. Oh no, that was my ankle, I think. And then when I done it the last year, so that would have been 2022, I done it. Was when I'd done my knee. I had started and I couldn't run for 2 or 3 weeks before it. But each time, yeah, I'd done better, and a lot of it was to do with just getting better at, the what to do on the day. So like checkpoints and that kind of thing. It wasn't always necessarily that I was becoming a better runner. I had more knowledge about what to do in the day, how to fuel. Don't spend too long in the checkpoints. These kind of things. Um, but
And
yeah, I
the
think
terrain as well. Because
yeah,
we've had the conversation with Mike Houston about the wall and how grueling that. There's one particular section
yeah.
that's just like it's like hitting the wall.
Well, that's actually my favourite section. I love that part. So yeah, right. So I think it starts around the marathon mark and it goes on for 10, maybe more miles, if
Yeah.
I remember right. It's between checkpoint to checkpoint. Um, and yeah, I love that part because it's when you get into the hills and the trails and that's what I love. A lot of that's road. Um, and I thought I wasn't built for that until the recent Glasgow Edinburgh went quite well. But it's what I love anyways, being on the trails and in the hills. So yeah, I absolutely love that part.
You've just covered something because you mentioned about the fitness during lockdown and the weights and stuff, and you've obviously saying your build as well because you are quite a well built guy. Obviously, you have to be with rugby, but you certainly don't. I think from the outside perspective, look like a runner as like the stereotypical like myself, kind of
Yeah.
tall, lanky, weighing nothing. So how do you find that your kind of more muscular physique handles kind of some of these events?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a factor that's against me. Um, I know. So in the grand scheme of things, BMI is not a good marker for a lot of things. However, my BMI is, sits up around the overweight to obese
Mm-hmm.
category, which,
Yeah,
looking at me, you won't see that. Like, say, body composition comes into that, looking at muscle and things. But when you're looking at doing long distance or ultra long distance events, that's quite a lot of extra weight going through my body. So, yeah, I know that would definitely help me losing a bit, but I think it also helps me when I'm doing things like hills and, I've got that extra strength in my legs. So I don't know. I think it's a bit of both. I know that I could definitely be a lot faster if I lost a good few kilograms, but also I'm used to having this size as well, and it would be quite difficult, and I wouldn't feel as comfortable in myself, I suppose, as well if I
yeah.
lost that amount of weight.
You,
So it's about getting that balance, I think, for myself.
you've maybe got more in the tank as well when it comes to an ultra, because you're carrying that little bit more.
Yeah,
You've got that more physicality to you. You can store a lot more energy than say someone who is like too thin and running a marathon, or let alone an ultra, would drain them to have nothing left in the tank. So I don't know. I know myself that BMI is a bit of an odd marker sometimes, because even fairly recently I was classed as overweight because of just how tall I am and the weight I
Yeah,
was. It's not a great kind of marker, but so I mean, with all of that as well, and having the rugby player kind of background, and you've mentioned the wall 3 times.
yeah,
Can you walk us through some of the other events that you've knocked out as well? And like you say, I didn't realize it was so early, but still, you're kind of the main drive as an ultra runner came from lockdown. So it's been a very short space of time. You've crammed in quite a lot of like really amazing events.
yeah. So yeah, I threw myself, although I'd done the 2 half marathons years ago, yeah, I pretty much just threw myself in at the wall. That was, I see that as my first event as a runner, because before then I was still a rugby player.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't really a runner. But yeah, after that, I then done the Ultra Tour of Edinburgh. It was the last one then. That was a 33 mile, I think. And then I've done Ultra Tour of Arran, which is a 2 dayer. It's probably one of my favourite races, that island. It's an amazing little island, and I've done that twice as well. And then yeah, I've done the Glasgow Edinburgh twice. Falkirk Ultra, I've done that twice. And then my big one last year was the Great Glen Way,
Mm-hmm.
which is similar distance to the wall. It's a couple miles more, so it's 73 miles, but the elevation is brutal on it.
Yeah.
The second half, and even looking at the numbers, so I think it's less than 10,000 feet elevation, if I remember right, which isn't a huge amount over that distance, but it's how steep it is as well. It's quite unforgiving to your quads, and I went hard on some of it, and I went out far too fast. And I was also being sick from 10 miles, and I didn't really eat much. I didn't actually eat anything until about 35 miles in, when I had half a pot noodle. Um,
So that's
but
unlike you.
you won't be surprised here that was the pot noodle. Um, but but yeah, even fluids I couldn't take on anything. So yeah, that was a tough one. I learned a lot there. It's a 1 a.m. start as well.
Yeah.
I didn't have a great sleep the night before, and I had all the travelling up. And then yeah, by the time I got to about 55 miles, I started seeing things and falling asleep on my feet. And yeah, I didn't eat enough at all through that event. So that was a massive learning curve anyway. Um, but yeah, I still absolutely loved it. I love going to that place where not a lot of people will go. You're in, yeah, falling asleep on my feet with however
This
many
is
miles
it's an
to go.
experience, isn't it?
It's yeah, I've never had anything quite, and I always kind of wanted to get to that, to the place where you are seeing things. I wasn't hallucinating. I was seeing things that weren't there. I was seeing things like trees, or stuff that were there and they looked like something else to
Yeah.
me. Like I had seen this tree and it looked like a big King Kong, and there was other bit that it looked like all these mice, and I thought I seen a lion, and so yeah, it was a bit surreal. Um, and yeah, but still to then get to the finish line of that when I was absolutely broken was it just there's no feeling like it. It's
We had a conversation recently about that, because I'm kind of toying with the idea of signing up for an ultra at some point, but I also
yeah,
have set goals this year, and you'd recommended the second half of the Great Glen, but also with the proximity to one of my goals this year. You said maybe not advisable, especially given when you look at your account and you look at the post for the Great Glen, that second section has a horrendous climb
yeah,
at one point. And I think anyone that's interested to see what kind of Gary's put himself through, go and have a look at one of his pinned posts at the top, and it will show you the elevation graph. And there's a video as well of just how destroyed you look coming across that line.
Oh, I remember coming up to that part and a guy shouted to me, because you've got the 400-meter track to
Yeah.
go around, and he shouted to me, "This is going to be the easiest 400 meters of your life." Oh, honestly, I've never. So there's the track around at the Glasgow Edinburgh, and I felt amazing going around that this year, especially. But oh, that track, it felt like it went on for 400 miles, never mind 400 meters, and I was in bits, like every step part. Up until that point, there was a bit that, so 2 miles before the finish line, you come down this very steep hill that goes on forever. And I think I'd done something like a 20-minute mile coming down there because it was so sore just taking a step going down.
Yeah.
And normally that you would, God, I would have been, I don't know, like less than half of that anyway coming down. So yeah, just every step. So yeah, you can see it in my body and my face when I'm coming over there that I was in so much pain. But it was worth it.
I was going to say, look, you're not really talking it up here, but you're also talking about it so highly as an event that absolutely destroyed you. But you can
Yeah,
still hear that you obviously should be proud of yourself for doing it, but you sound so happy about the whole thing.
yeah, yeah. I'm sitting here talking about it with a smile on my face because and I don't know what it's about. And people at work and in daily life ask me why do you put yourself through these things? And it's a difficult question to answer. I always say that we get things so easy nowadays. I jump in my car to go to work. We go to the supermarket to buy our food.
Mm.
We sit and watch our tellies. It's I think we get it easy, and I like to put myself in that place to see how my body does when times are really hard. And not many people get the chance to put their body in that place. And there's a lot of people that struggle to walk, never mind run. So I'm quite privileged to be able to put my body through that and see what I can do. So yeah, it makes me happy, and I love doing it. So
That's so kind of spooky because just on my run yesterday, I was thinking that we have life so easy now, whereas our grandparents and great grandparents wouldn't have had it nearly as easy. They would have had to walk a lot of these distances to get from A
yeah,
to B. They wouldn't have just been able to pop down the shops and get what they wanted, the luxuries in life. So when you say it like that, that's really nice that you're not taking life for granted. You're going and doing the things that might have actually had to be the way of life before. The medals must help though.
I mean, we all like a nice medal.
Especially that Glasgow to Edinburgh one.
Oh, it's a monster, that one. Yeah, it's a very nice one. And then the Great Glen, it's an old sort of Scottish ultra thing, but it's a whiskey glass that you get.
Nice.
And that's sitting pride, like sitting on my table just next to me. Actually, like it's a special thing to have. And yeah, you're right. The medals are, like you're saying, the Glasgow Edinburgh one looks amazing, but it's more about looking at the medals and the times that the what you went through to get them as well. That's what means a lot to me anyway. But yeah, like that one or the Blades one that spins, they're always going to be good
Aye.
medals to have as well.
More the memories than the medals, but the medals help.
Oh, definitely. Well, like a good shiny medal.
I think one that kind of got me as well is that the trio medal that you've got. Is it the rat race?
Yeah, yeah. So that's kind of what. So the first year, like when it came to lockdown, when I done the wall, I got one segment of that, and then I thought, oh, that would be cool to get them all. And when I looked at it, it was the Ultra Tour Arran and the Ultra Tour of Edinburgh, and the Edinburgh was in that October, and that was the last one, and then Arran was in April, and Arran isn't exactly cheap as well,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I'd ended up someone was selling their place to Edinburgh, so I managed to get that, and then Rat Race do things where you can pay up for Aaron. So yeah, I managed to get both of them, but I think that was getting them early on as well, and I had in my head right after the wall, I'd quite like to get this trio medal, and it would be quite a cool thing to have. So I signed up for them pretty quickly after, and that was it. I think that's the thing is I've always had the next event to look forward to as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Apart from saying that I had a few months there at the end of the year when I was waiting on the ballot coming in for the West Highland Way, but yeah, pretty much the rest of the time I've always had the next thing in the calendar.
So with combination medals and always having something to think like another event on the horizon to think about, and I can't remember the name of the medal or the series that she did, but Tanya Carmona when she was on in whatever season 2 she was on, and she did, I think it was 6. Sorry about that, the doorbell going. She did 6 events in, I think, the year, and she got like a special mega medal for doing that. Is that maybe the UK Ultra Series or something? Which
It's
something
the
like
GB.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
GB Ultra. So it's the same people who've done Glasgow, Edinburgh. So yeah, I have looked at that. So you can do either the 50 or the 100. And I'm sure it was the 50 that she done. I think it's 5 that you can
Mm-hmm.
pick out 6 or 7.
Yeah.
And then the 100, I think it's 4 you do for it. But yeah, that's definitely something that I've looked at. Um, but yeah, it's not there yet. It's not quite in my plan. I've got a bit of a plan for the next couple of years,
Okay.
and yeah, I couldn't fit that in there. But it's definitely something that I've looked at and thought about. Um,
Something to build to.
yeah,
Something to build to.
definitely. Yeah,
We've covered a little bit of the ribbing that you kind of got, not just from myself, but from a few of the folks. So you were along at the Loch Ness 24 with myself and with a lot of other people forming the Dibbers, and you did get a ribbon for seemingly eating all the time. Every time you came into that tent, you always had a pot noodle or something in your hand. The background you have though as a dietitian and was it dietetics you said earlier,
yeah,
that must help immensely when it comes to ultra fueling.
yeah. You would think so. Um, it's difficult because a lot of, and yeah, you're right. I did. I ate a lot there, and yeah, I do in general in life eat a lot of food. I love food. I talk about food all day. I think about it all day. So yeah, that's probably part of it. But yeah, obviously I have the background and the knowledge, and it is like clinical dietetics. I don't do sports dietetics, but obviously for my own knowledge, I do a lot of reading around that as well. But yeah, one of the hardest things about ultra running and nutrition is finding what works for you and what you can tolerate. And
Yeah.
it's not always that simple where, we try things and I'm not great. And it's one thing actually, I had 3 things that I spoke to Kaz, my coach, about at the start of the year that we're going to work on. And that's one of them is my nutrition. And it's more about using it on my long runs and because I can go out some long runs and not eat much. And we're not only training the legs, we need to train our gut as well to get used to it. So um, yeah, I think it does help to a certain extent because I know what I should be aiming for and what I should be doing. But
Mm.
yeah, unfortunately, it's not always that simple, is it?
No,
I've
it's true.
I've had quite a lot of issues with being sick and things as well, and I've found out some of the sort of triggers that I have that was making me be sick, and I've pulled them out. And thankfully, the last 2 ultras I've done, I haven't been sick. So hopefully that's a good sign that I'm going in the right direction with that. But yeah, it's just about playing out about the things on your long run. And if you get a 24-hour event in a team, just eat as much as you can and see what you can tolerate.
Well, obviously the week didn't go, that weekend didn't necessarily go the way that you wanted it to, but I suppose we've covered probably what was the cause of that, with being the Great Glen. And I touched that I've got a big goal this year is the mixed duos for the
Yeah,
24 with why can't I forget? Well, I've forgotten her name.
Lorna.
It's Lorna. That's it. Yeah.
Oh, that's you sacked.
That's me, definitely. She's going to beat me up now. You can tell my mind's trying to work overtime here. So I've got this big goal with Lorna for the mixed doubles.
Yeah,
So you'd advise like the Great Glen, so aim for it in the future, but maybe not so close to the 24. But of course, you did the Great Glen last year, and even further than I would ever consider doing to then come to the 24. You got a flyer with Nick and Jamie. You were absolutely
yeah,
bossing it. You were at one point in contention for a podium, but unfortunately, things don't always go to plan, like you kind of said there as well. And then you end up eating all the time. How did it feel with that? What was the mindset you kind of got to have that knowledge and restraint to say, no, that's enough, but then also to
yeah.
sit and watch the boys finish off?
Yeah, it was quite a difficult one because I am a very competitive person. And I know in ultra running, it's very unlikely that I'm going to be pushing the guys at the podium, but I'm looking to push myself and race the people that's around me.
Mhm.
And yeah, so when we went into that, I thought, doing it as part of a team, I'm just going to go out there and run and have fun. And I went pretty hard on all the laps that I'd done. But the final lap that I'd done, and even before that, I think even the couple of weeks before it, I felt this little bit in my Achilles,
Mhm.
which I'd never had before. And I think it was going into the final lap was when it just started getting dark and even colder. And obviously it was so wet that weekend as well.
Yeah.
And I think it was just a mixture of all. I mean, I started because we were doing like each time we went out, we were doing 2 laps. So the first lap that I'd done this time I'd went out was fine. And then it was when I came over the start line and that hill going
Yeah.
up, and I could feel it a bit, and I totally pulled back that lap. And yeah, I knew that I think I was 4 weeks away, or maybe more than that. I can't remember. I wasn't too far away from Glasgow, Edinburgh as well. So that was my main goal, and this was just about meeting everyone, having a good weekend. So yeah, I kind of switched them out, and I thought if I had to do this, I'd find it very difficult. But I think because of the camaraderie that was around everyone anyway, and how good that the likes of Rachel was doing and Mike who were doing on their own, that I thought I'm just going to switch and I'm going to be there for a support for them.
Mhm.
So I think it was still being part of the team and able to do something um that yeah, I was fine. And Jamie and Nick were doing what they wanted to do, and they both done amazing as well. And I think for the amount of laps that we'd done in the time was still good as well for it being the three of us, and me pulling out with, I think it was only 6 laps that I'd done, so wasn't a huge amount, but it was a brilliant weekend, even though the the weather wasn't exactly in our favour.
No, the weather was a wee bit rubbish. But you're right. I think Jamie's times, his first 2 laps, I think were still up within. I can't remember exactly, but it was like top 20 fastest times or something daft. He just absolutely flew it. But no, with yourself, Nick and Jamie, you stayed in contention for a very long time,
Yeah,
even after you made that well-informed decision to say no, enough is enough. I've got to look after myself for Glasgow to Edinburgh, but also I've not exactly treated my body well from the Great Glens perspective. Um, would you say then that you might have a score to settle with the 24? And is it something that you would maybe come back to tackle again as a solo or in a different category?
so I am doing a 24 event this year, but it's not Loch Ness. So I had planned on until, I don't know, just a couple of weeks ago, having chat with my coach and having to really think about what I want to do this year. Um, so I'm doing Glenmore 24 this year,
Okay.
which is 2 weeks after. Um, I'm actually only planning on doing 2 races this year in total. Last year I done quite a bit, and although you're saying yeah the Great Glen and then on to the Loch Ness 24. Actually, 2 weeks after Greg Glenn had done the Blades 50k as well,
That's right. Yeah, I knew
which
there's another one.
was yeah, which wasn't the brightest idea, but I really wanted that spinny medal. Um, so yeah, I was obviously with they two under my belt so close as well. Yeah, I did do a lot last year, and then at the start of the year I had my first DNF and with my meniscus, my knee, and I was coming back for that, and I ended up having a great year that I loved. But I think it's time to I've picked these two big events and I'm going to have a proper go at them. So yeah, the Glenmore 24 just I love the route at Loch Ness, and if I was just doing it for more of a fun type thing again, then it's exactly where I would go. And it was a great weekend we had, but for my own sort of goals,
Mhm.
Glenmore's the route's better for that and for better for me to push the mileage. So yeah, that's the plan this year.
It's also about exploring somewhere different and seeing more
Yeah,
sites and getting more events done. Glenmore does look good. I know Lauren had tried to secure a place after the 24 last year because she had such a good time that she thought, you know what, let's try Blaga space. So I know she was very keen on that as well. So no, it looks like a great one. And fingers crossed, the weather this year in that space of time is a marked improvement on what we had last year.
Yeah, I hope so. Anyway, I mean, I don't like if you look at the weather at Glasgow, Edinburgh this year. It was biblical. The rain. It was. I've never ran anything like it. Um,
Of course, yes.
and and I had my best race that I've ever had at Glasgow, Edinburgh. So yeah, I don't mind it. I think it kind of fuels me a bit as well when it's not great. I've worked out that I like extremes. The weather, I suppose that's why I've started looking at the spine as well, which I never thought I would. Um, but yeah, I think it would be okay. It's just I think it's harder in that type of event where you could, it's 24 hours, so you're going slower, spreading out over that time. Whereas at Glasgow, Edinburgh, I was non-stop. You're lucky if I was 30 seconds in the pit stop and I was away again.
Mhm.
And I managed to keep moving. Whereas I think that's where a lot of people went wrong on the day. They were stopping and getting cold because it was that wet. I was fortunate enough I could keep moving, but I think 24-hour events maybe a bit different. So hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll be good because this year, well, last year, every single race I had it was terrible weather. So surely can't be any worse than that.
What you're saying is you brought the terrible weather then. You're the
Well,
bad luck charm.
possibly. I think, every single, I think it just got worse and worse. Great Glen was terrible. Blades was as well. Well, it wasn't too bad, but it was wet. Then, we know what Loch Ness was like. And then Glasgow, Edinburgh was horrible. And then,
Actually, if anything, Glasgow to Edinburgh was worse weather than what we had at Loch Ness. I know it was pretty unbearable how much rain we got in such a short space of time, but it didn't flood nearly as much throughout Scotland as it did the
so,
weekend of Glasgow to Edinburgh.
yeah, it was pretty bad, the flooding. Yeah, I don't think I've ever ran anything like it before. There was a lot of bits where you didn't know where the canal was finished and the path was starting. It was great. And then the guy that won it absolutely smashed the record as well. And I've no idea how he managed to do it in that weather. It's just amazing.
Suppose it keeping him cool because you ran such an amazing time though. Are you done with Glasgow to Edinburgh, or is that something that you want to go back and do in the future? Or is it kind of always have a place close to your heart, or like I say, are you now done with that and say I set my time, I've done a phenomenal job?
Yeah, I'm not sure to be honest. So when I done it the year before, I thought like when it happened, I had a few things that went wrong, and that I think that was the first race that I'd been sick in as well, and it just didn't go well for me. I was still happy with my time, but I knew that I could do better, so I signed up pretty much straight away. And then after it, maybe a week or two, I thought, why did I do that? That's not my kind of race. It's very flat,
Mhm.
and I like being in the hills. I like that, getting a bit of elevation and on the trails as well. And this is pretty much all tarmac. So yeah, I actually wasn't as up for it as I had been for a lot of other races. But then as it got closer to it, my competitiveness just kicked in anyway, and I was really looking forward to it. But yeah, so it's not exactly the kind of races that I see myself doing. The thing with ultras is there's such a breadth of different ones. You've got ones that are 30 miles, about 50k, to ones that are days and days long, ones that are on tarmac, other ones that are in mountains. They're so different, and I'll see myself running the more hilly ones, and I'm liking the 70 miles now. Next year it's going to be a bit more than that, and I'm hoping I feel the same with that. So I'll never say never, and I think just with how I felt through it, and when I was speaking to Kaz after it, she was trying to get out of me where I went to in there, and she spoke about me being in this bubble, and it's exactly where I went to. And when I'm out in long runs or the Ultra Glen Oval I had after that, I was always thinking about going into that bubble. So I think it'll always be that place in my heart and in my head that I'll go to as well. But whether I'll run it again or not, yeah, I'd never say never. But at the moment, I don't see it.
Maybe if
Yeah,
you need a slightly easier one for the big medal, if I think I'm pretty sure that's part and part. Yeah, like you say, it's part and parcel of it. So
yeah,
maybe that's a good way to finish it of
yeah,
an
it could
easy
be.
one.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Right. I'm going to try draw things slightly to a close now, but
Yep.
I wanted to mention something. We briefly spoke about it before I press record, and we've mentioned your background in dietetics and as a dietitian. And it's something that I noticed at the Loch Ness 24, and I thought having family who are diabetic or have hypos, etc., and they're really bad at keeping a track of their own levels. You were wearing a monitor, and I think everyone at some point of in the weekend said to you, "Didn't know you're diabetic," and
Yeah.
the same response. I'm not. I'm just a little bit of background on something that you would tell a patient to wear, or advise a patient to wear, so you kind of more informed about the different ones on the go. Did you find, and are you, firstly, are you still wearing one of those? But did you find that benefited your kind of overall knowledge of not only your profession, but also your fitness in general, and what worked and what didn't, and what helped, and also what didn't help?
So that particular device that I was wearing was called a Dexcom, but I'd wore Libra as well a couple of times before then. Um, yeah, and they were so I'd started a new post in May, and it's a split post, and half of my post is in diabetes. So it's mainly with type 1 diabetes that I work with, and I do the education program for people that are newly diagnosed with type 1. So they all get, well, in our board anyway, they all get these devices, these Libras. So yeah, you're right. So I was wearing these for basically, yeah, so I could help them, if they're asking me questions about it, or, so I can show them how, the app works, or how to put it on, or, there's things that I found out from wearing them, the best position, and, things that can happen with them. I had one on for like an hour at one point, and I walked through a door and ripped it off, which wasn't great. So, the little things like this that I picked up from wearing them. But yeah, that it was quite interesting. So we'd spoken a bit about that we were doing 2 laps at a time, and I had done 6. And the first, so I wasn't looking at throughout. I thought I'll just look at after and see what it's like. And through the first 2 sets of 2 laps done, it was fine. As you said, I was eating so much then as well. You
Mhm.
would think there's no way that I can go down low. Um, and I wasn't. I think I was probably sitting around the 5 millimole mark, which is good. Below 4 is a classed as a hypo. However, obviously, I don't have diabetes, so that it's technically, you wouldn't treat it or
You
anything.
wouldn't be
It's not.
worried about, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't have artificial inserted in and artificial insulin inserted into my body. Um, but yeah, it was interesting that final lap, although we'd already said, with my Achilles and things, that I wasn't great with that, and I did pull it back, but I also pulled it back because I felt quite flat during that last lap. And it
Hmm.
was interesting to go back and have a look, and that I was actually technically in a hypo, so I was below 4 that last loop as well, um, which I found very interesting. And I sort of wish, seeing that after, that was one of the things that made me want to go back out more than just my own competitiveness, but just to see what happened there. Um, so yeah, it was very interesting though, and the things that I've spoken to people, at work and things about that as well, and they're saying, "Oh, did you eat enough?" And as you know yourself, I ate a lot, and it was a lot of carb heavy food, like you say, there was a lot of pot noodles, and I had there was bread in there, and there was loads of things that I was eating through there that was it was pretty much all carbs, a bit of
Yeah.
protein and fat in there as well, but so yeah, it was very interesting, and I think that it's difficult. And a lot of these things are coming into the sporting world as well. They're the same, pretty much the same sensors, and they are very interesting. But it's about what do we do with that data? Like, what could I change with that data? And I think that's where we're not quite at yet.
Hmm.
For that side of things, and I don't have a lot of experience with the sports side of things. Like I said, I'm a clinical dietitian. But yeah, I just find it all very, very fascinating, and it's something I think that is going to be coming into our sport more and more. But yeah, from my side, my point of view for my patients, it definitely helped me to help them more as well.
So you're not still wearing it, no?
No, so that was the last one I wore actually.
Right.
So yeah, I'd wore a couple of them before that, and then that one at that point, I had that for a couple of weeks, and I was waiting specifically for then to wear it, because they only last a certain amount of time. The Libras last 14 days, and that one that was wearing the Dexcom's 10 days that it lasts. So,
Right.
yeah, you have to constantly change them. Um, so yeah, no, not wearing it anymore. But I might at some point, if there's new things that come out, then we try these things, and if we want to, and I'm always really interested in trying all these different things, so I can, as best as I can, understand a little bit of what my patients are going through to help them a bit more.
Yeah, because that's one of my notes, and I mentioned to you beforehand. You don't hear doctors trying all the medication they're prescribing to their patients. You mentioned there, though, you do see more and more athletes wearing products that are very similar looking. They might be an off grey or a black, opposed to what you see someone with diabetes wearing, which is usually white. So, would you then be more inclined to wear one of the sports ones just for your own knowledge, or is it you've done it, you're like, well, I've kind of got what I can get from it, and you're
Yeah,
happy with that?
yeah, more of the latter. I think, to be honest, that like I mentioned a little bit, again, this definitely isn't my field. I'm not a sports dietitian,
Mhm.
um, but yeah, I think it's very interesting to see this data, but I don't. What I've looked at anyway at the time, I couldn't see enough out there to show what we would then do with that data.
Yeah.
Like how it is different. I can work with an athlete that has diabetes that is insulin controlled, and I can, help them with that side of things to adjust things and help them when they're exercising. But with people that don't insert,
Yeah,
insulin in
yeah,
their
yeah.
body, not diet, I don't know what we do with that and how we can change it. I just, yeah, I don't think there's um enough information out there for that specific, especially with, like say endurance athletes. And if there is, then yeah, it would definitely spark my interest. But at the moment, no, I think it's more of for my own interest, when I was using it for running, but it's more for me to be a better clinician, a better dietitian, really.
You've maybe got going to get yourself a wee niche there now, getting diabetic
Uh,
ultra athletes coming to coming to call
well,
at your door.
I would definitely be interested in that. I've had a few people that play different sports, but I've yet to have an endurance athlete. So yeah, that would definitely be
Oof,
interesting.
that would be mental,
Yeah,
right? So we'll do this last little question now. So you've obviously said there's very little on your calendar for this year. You've got your two main goals, and that's it. But you did kind of allude to you've got a plan going forward. Is that something that you kind of have formulated and you're happy to kind of share a little bit
yeah.
more, or is that still quite kind of foggy in the whole ether?
No, yeah. So the plan for this year, anyway, is I go into the West Hill and Way ballot. So that's the big one this year at the end of June, and then, like I said, Glenmore 24. I also have I am volunteering at the Cape Wrath Ultra this year in May.
Nice.
So the plan is probably a year earlier than I wanted to, but the year after do the Dragons back.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
so the plan was to do West Hill and Way this year and hopefully get into the Lakeland 100 next year. But I think they're a bit too close to Lakeland 100 and Dragons back. But that's something else that I'd really like to do. So that'd probably be the year after. So that's kind of the next 3 years, my big races anyway. Obviously, it might not work out that this year's obviously set, but and then with doing the Cape Wrath volunteering this year, it's most likely it's going to be Dragons back next year, which is it's the big one that I really want to do. Like I thought, I didn't never thought we'd do it this early on, but I feel like by that point it's probably a good time.
Yeah.
I think I would have had a good. I'll have what 5 years of running under my belt by the time it gets there. As long as everything keeps going as the way it is anyway. Can't obviously predict the future, but
No, exactly.
but yeah. So that's yeah, that's pretty much the plan for the next couple of years. And like I mentioned a little bit as well, I never thought I would look at it, but there's something about the spine that I feel like I might have to do. But I think that's way down the line, but probably at least another 5, 6 years away, I would think.
So 100 miles is the current A goal, and then anything beyond that is just a bonus.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because obviously the West Highland Way is just short of the 100 miles.
Yeah.
And then doing the Dragons back the next year is well over that, but it's split over days. And it's it's one of the toughest races about, so that will be a really tough
That'll
week
be
or
more of
so.
a mental and physical battle.
Yeah, it's but the route just looks amazing. It's that race that I seen, back at the start when I got into ultra running, that I thought one day I'm going for that. So yeah, I'm hoping that things go to plan, and I can finally tick that one off. Um,
That's
but yeah,
good
so
to hear, man. That's like your version of London. Everyone has their race that is
yeah,
the one they look forward to when they eventually get to do it. So no,
yeah,
that's good to hear.
yeah. It's my sort of Everest, I suppose. It's
Yeah,
that big one to climb. Um, so yeah, that's the next few years. Hopefully, if that's the way things work out anyway.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, spot on. I think I've mentioned your handle anyway, but do you want to share where people can find you on Instagram and maybe as well your coach again, just to kind of get her a little bit more airing?
Yeah, so my Instagram is Gary underscore runs underscore, and my coach is it's the Wild Heart Runners. If you look at them Insta, they do a lot of runs just for anyone. You don't have to be coached by them, and they're brilliant. There's a couple coming up on the sort of West Highland Way route as well. If anyone's doing the fling or anything, and yeah, so it's Karen Nicol, and Debbie Martin Kinsani. That's the coaches for them. So yeah, definitely give them a follow. And if you're looking for coaching, I couldn't honestly, I couldn't say anything highly enough for her. She's amazing. So yeah, look them up.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for joining me today, Gary. That was really good to kind of get more of an understanding about everything that has come before and also what's going to be in the future.
Yeah, no, it's great. Thanks for having me.
I get that you have to really enjoy hills, trails, and the physical self abuse to be an ultra runner. But you can really hear the love for it all in the way that Gary talks about the events that have come before and those on the horizon. There are some amazing event medals already hanging around Gary's neck, but there are more to come. All the best to Gary for the big 2 this year, and hopefully I can get a meet up with the big fella himself at some point as well. A shout out to Gary's coach, Karen Nicol, and to Debbie Martin Kanzani over at the Wild Heart Runners, who must have heard Gary was bigging them up as they, funnily enough, dropped the show a follow earlier this week as well. Alas, it will be 3 episodes of Ultra Runners in a row with my guest for episode 5. You'll get more on that on Monday. It's just a quick sowing of the seeds for those who like to guess who might be the next batter up to the plate. If you have liked what you've heard today though, the best way to support the podcast is to do what you've been doing. Download, stream and listen to the show. A quick share with your family and friends, or a share on social media alongside a tag back to the show's page wouldn't go amiss either. They're just 2 of the free ways that you can show your support for what I'm doing. If you'd like to show your physical support for the podcast, well, you can do that by purchasing a t-shirt from our merchandise partners over at Twisted Running. All proceeds stay with Twisted and help them grow as a brand and continue to provide valuable collaborations with running groups and podcasts like myself. The quality of their product is top notch, and as I said last time, I'm not getting paid to say that. I do use my own money to buy the show's t-shirts, and I only have positive things to say about the ones that I've already bought. You can find a direct link to the Twisted 99 page on our website, thepoint99podcast.com, or by Googling Twisted Running. Dropping them a follow on social media will also be a great thing to do to find out what they've got going on. The show is available on all major platforms, so if your friends and family don't like using Apple or hate using Spotify, there is always going to be an alternative for them. You can also find every episode streamable on our website, as well in the inbuilt player on the episodes page. Finally, we're on both Instagram and Facebook. Just search for the Point 99 podcast if you'd like to follow what I'm doing over there. If you want to get in contact, you can always leave a comment on any of the posts. You can email me at thepoint99podcast@gmail.com, or you can drop a direct message to either the Point 99's page on Instagram or to my very own page, Mr_Steve_runs. But that is it for today. Thank you as always for tuning in, not for myself, but for the guests who are giving up their valuable time to come and speak to me. I hope you have a fantastic weekend and the week between now and episode 5. Until episode 5 rolls around, I hope you stay safe, enjoy your runs, and you will as always hear from me soon.